everybody, and welcome to another episode of I Hate Your Taste in Movies. This is a movie podcast where we force our friends to watch the things we love and see what goes terribly, terribly wrong. You can find us on Twitter at I Hate Your Taste and on Instagram at Hate Your Taste Pod. I'm Jackie.
I'm Jen.
I'm Austin.
And today we're doing my favorite movie, a Jackie pick.
Every movie's your favorite movie.
I know. I just love when it's my week, though. I would come into it a lot happier than when it's someone else's week. But then immediately I get very defensive. So, I don't know. My emotions are all over the place.
It's a roller coaster.
Right? But today, I made Jen and Austin watch one of the ultimate 90s movies, The Fugitive, starring Harrison Ford and Tommy Lee Jones. I'm so happy. I love this movie. And I always forget how much I love it until I watch it. And then I'm right back into my childhood. So just to briefly go over my connection to this movie, I don't know why it's one of the movies we watched over and over when we were kids. I think it's one of the few movies we could all agree on because we're a pretty wide age range in my siblings. So I think if we liked it, then we watched it 100 times a week. So I remember watching it over and over. I remember acting it out in play in the backyard. And I remember one time, can't remember which one of my siblings, but they were pretending to be the one-armed man and running around and fell into the pool. And I was I thought it was the greatest thing ever. Sorry, it's a very vague memory. I can't even do it justice, but it is part of my childhood. I definitely loved Harrison Ford. I actually identified Harrison Ford with this movie first, I think. And so he's always seemed a little older and a little rougher, but this made me love him. And again, it's that perfect suspense action combo that I really, really enjoy. Yeah, it was suggested for us to do this from my sister Jen, and she's so right. And when I told my other sister I was watching it, she got super amped. So it's not just me. But let's see, Jen, do you have a connection to this movie at all?
No, I had seen it before. Probably I haven't seen it since I was a kid. I feel like, Jackie, a lot of your movies, that kind of 80s, 90s action movies are just movies that were on TV a lot when I was a kid. So I usually have some sort of familiarity with them. But I don't think I watched this one as much as, say, Demolition Man. But I had seen it before. I do enjoy it. I didn't remember a lot of it, weirdly. So, the stuff that I remembered wasn't necessarily plot based. It was more just the big set pieces. So watching it again now and kind of seeing how it all weaved together, I was like, oh, interesting. I did not realize this is why this happened next.
That's actually kind of a funny point because I don't know if I was a kid I really understood the exact reveal of the bad guy and what was actually happening in terms of pharmaceuticals.
I'm still not sure I fully understand, but we'll get into that.
Nice. Let's get into it. And what about you, Austin?
I'd heard of it. This is another one of those that's one of Blake's favorite movies, but clearly we don't watch movies together because I've never seen it. My biggest frame of reference for this was a John Mulaney joke where he talks about meeting Bill Clinton in the same ballroom that they filmed the big confrontation about switching the samples. So that was really my only frame of reference for it. So I knew it was something about switching samples. But other than that, I wrote, as a summary guess, context clues tell me that Harrison Ford is a fugitive. And then I said, no idea the background on this. Was he falsely accused? Guilty, but for a good reason? Does he have to accomplish something before he is caught? That's pretty much all I got.
I mean, you're pretty much spot on in terms
Harrison
of being
Ford
the vaguest ever.
Was in fact a fugitive.
Yeah, so good job, question mark?
Yes, you saw the poster that said The Fugitive starring Harrison Ford.
Yeah, and he was running, so I assume he was on the run.
So if you haven't seen The Fugitive because you were just born, like Austin, or you live under a rock.
Also like Austin.
Austin. It's a classic story. I think it was a TV show and a movie and various different types of media. But the story is Harrison Ford is a doctor. He's falsely accused of killing his wife and convicted. We know that he fought a one-armed man in his home who had killed his wife. So basically, he's on a transport to prison. He manages to escape. And basically the whole movie is him trying to solve the mystery of why his wife was killed and get his life back. And we have Tommy Lee Jones and a group of U.S. Marshals who are chasing him all across the states, pretty much. Conspiracies, action, lots of different forms of transportation. This movie is great. So let's get into it, you guys. I'm super stoked. The first thing is that I love Sela Ward. Do you guys have any connection to Sela Ward?
No.
No, obviously not.
You just said, yeah.
The actress who plays the wife.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
There was a television show many moons ago called Sisters, and it was about, spoiler alert, some sisters.
Whoa.
Oh.
And Sela Ward was on it. So again, shout out to my sisters because we watched the show together. So I have a connection to Sela Ward, and I really like her, and I think she's great. So I always, when this movie opens and I'm like, oh yeah, Sela Ward is a person, I'm always really excited. She's great. She nails her part.
To have seen more of her.
Yeah,
Right,
it's like
she was-
you really don't get much of her other than her death scene over and over again.
Yeah, she's a real small part, but shout out because I love her. I think she did great work with her limited role. And I honestly think this movie is kind of the perfect thing for Harrison Ford.
This is probably my favorite Harrison Ford movie that
Right?
I've
Like,
seen. I mean, I haven't
What
seen
ones
his
have
full
you seen?
repertoire. I mean, I've seen like all the Indiana Jones and all the Star Wars movies, and I still think this one. I don't like Harrison Ford, so this was a step up for me.
That's
Also,
fair.
I was kind of on board with the beard at the beginning.
I mean, it makes him look old, but I'm not
He is
against
old.
it. I like it when he strips down the beard and dyes his hair black, because then he looks younger. That's my peak
Well,
Harrison Ford.
If we're getting there, I'm just gonna say there's at one point where the fugitive is described as having brown hair, and I was like, that's not Harrison Ford. Like, he does not have brown hair. It was like before he had dyed his hair and everything.
Oh yeah, I guess his hair was gray at that
It was
point, right?
definitely gray. I was like, that's some
Mm.
wishful thinking there, Harrison Ford.
I bet they were like, we're going to describe you as gray haired. And he was like, it is in my contract that my hair shall be referred to as sable, thick brown.
It was
Thank
so
They're like
weird.
reading his description and they're like, the man on the run is an extremely handsome, very tall and young looking man.
Super charismatic, smart, and rich.
Yeah.
Dangerous. But I think like Harrison Ford, I like him. I mean, I can't not think of him as Han Solo as well. So you got that. That always makes me soft in the heart for Harrison Ford. But he needs a movie where it's not really that dependent on his acting skills. Because he
Yeah.
has like not a lot in his repertoire.
And he makes it very obvious when he doesn't want to be there.
Yes.
And I felt like he wanted to be there for this.
Yeah, he was given it. He was invested to the degree that he can be. Like he can't carry a movie basically, right? Like he can't carry dialogue and emotion in a conversation. Him running and looking scared is great. He's great at it. He's fine.
I love how that's a theme also with a lot of your movies. It's
I
like,
know,
well,
right?
this leading man is a terrible actor. He really can't carry any emotion. We're fully relying on everyone around him.
They're action stars usually. That's not what they're there for. They're not
Yeah,
there to
that's-
emote.
That's very true. It's a very specific type of actor who does like an action movie. And it's
But
not
that's why
really
it's-
someone who's like emotional. It's just like they can look kind of confused and that look of concentration on their face. That's kind of all they need.
And that's why it's hard because you want to have a movie that's interesting, action, but also has something else, right? Like True Lies had comedy action. This is like thriller suspense action. I like when it melds something else into the action. I also
Yeah,
like
and
straight action, don't get me wrong.
And I think what they also do is like to pair off that lead who can't really act, they'll get someone who really, really can. So like, you know, Sandra Bullock has pulled that a few times for us in the past, and in this one, Tommy Lee Jones is just fucking amazing. So he's like, I will handle all of this part of it, and then you handle all of the running.
Okay, so that is a good place to talk about our feelings towards Tommy Lee Jones.
I will
Of
start by
interest.
saying that I always forget who he is, and in name only, I always mix him up with Billy Bob Thornton. That's what I realized
Ugh.
this movie.
How
are
He's
you?
unbelievably unforgettable. Tommy Lee Jones is, wait
Well-
for it, iconic.
These are not movies that are in my wheelhouse of enjoyment, so I'm not gonna watch them. It's just the three name thing. I know that they are not each other. I don't actually mix them up. I just mix up the names. If you tell me one, I don't know.
But yeah, honestly, put me on the spot. I can't think of a lot of things Tommy Lee Jones is. He's been in a lot of like FBI agent movies and police, but more of the dramatic side, if I were to summarize him. But that's fine. You don't have to know who he is. But did you like him in the movie? That's
I did. For the most part, I liked him. I thought he was funny. I thought he was like he felt like a real character, felt like a person. Apparently he was improvising a lot and making a lot of changes, so that's cool.
What about you, Jen?
I absolutely loved him. Spoiler alert, but he's my favorite part of the movie.
That's funny because I love him also, but he's such a dick in this movie that like my love for him is tainted because I'm always like, you could be nicer to your team. You could like be less short with people and you could play the media game a little bit more. Like I think he could be more effective if he was a little bit different, but that like I get that that's his thing. He's the like gruff, doesn't play by the rules cowboy chaser guy. So I forgive him.
I was gonna say that I really liked Tommy Lee Jones, and I did overall, but the only thing that's holding me back is that like my least favorite scene in this movie is that raid scene, and I feel like that makes me dislike him a lot. And so I have a hard time saying as a blanket statement that I liked his character.
Honestly, I feel the exact same way. So just to recap for people, there's another criminal who escapes at the same time as Harrison Ford's character. Harrison Ford is Richard Kimball. The other guy's name is Copeland. So in the movie, they just say they found him and they're going to go raid, but they don't say who they found. So if they're trying to misdirect you to think that they found Harrison Ford and they're going to raid his house. But when they break into this home, it's actually Copeland they find. So they chase him around. Copeland takes one of the marshals hostage, and then Tommy Lee Jones, in a very dangerous, terrible, irresponsible, bad move, shoots behind the back of the hostage marshal and kills Copeland. Yeah. So first of all, that is not like a sanctioned move. You can't like shoot so close to the other marshal that you burn his jacket off, which he did. There's like a huge hole in his jacket where the bullet almost touched him.
Yeah, because it was like from close range.
Yeah, he almost deafens him, because I even made a note in my book that it's one of my pet peeves, how they never acknowledge how loud gunfire is in action movies. Like all of these people would be deaf because they'll show them in the beginning of the movie at a firing range with hearing protection, but then when they're in a home shooting each other, they're just like, this is fine, bang, 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 right beside my ear. Anyway, and then also he didn't try and negotiate with Copeland at all, and Copeland was saying like, let's talk, we can work this out, I want to get out of this, and he just shoots him, no mercy. And I'm like, that's kind of meaning you're a bad dude.
Yeah, I think there's also a conversation later with like the other marshal where he's like, Tommy Lee Jones is like, what, do you think I should have negotiated? And he's like, yeah, because you could have accidentally killed me. And I'm like, but also you just killed that guy, which is not great on its own. Like, it doesn't matter that you were also in danger. Like, the issue here is that you just shot a guy in the head.
Yeah, and really, like, there was danger, right? Like, it can be considered self-defense, obviously, but it didn't have to go that way.
No, like, if he had had a little more patience, because I think it wasn't necessarily that he thought, oh, he's going to kill this guy, we're in immediate danger. It was more just like, let's just get this over with. Let's just end this now.
Yeah. Also didn't love that his girlfriend was, like, right there, and then so she was screaming, obviously, because I'm assuming girlfriend, wife, I don't know, but she was, like, screaming because he had just been shot, basically, in front of her, and Tommy Lee Jones is just like, shut up, and, like, storms out.
I was going to ask you guys about this because I'm not sure if the version I was watching was cut for the screen, but was he pointing a gun at her when he said shut up, or was he just pointing his hand at her?
I think he was just pointing his hand.
Okay, I think so too.
I hope
but
so.
Like, he had a gun in one of his hands and then he points at her aggressively, and I'm just like, I couldn't see his hand, it was cut off. But in my mind I was like, is he pointing a gun at this innocent woman saying shut up?
Yeah,
because that's super uncool. Because I think what they're saying in the movie is that she's just a random woman who picked him up. Like, I don't think they have a relationship, but still, she's clearly innocent.
I did wonder about that, because I think afterwards they show them arresting her, so I was kind of like, if she didn't know who he was, she did nothing wrong, so like, why are you arresting her? So then I wonder if it was supposed to be like his longtime girlfriend or whatever, and then she was knowingly harboring a fugitive.
Maybe. In my mind, I assumed that they're just arresting her temporarily, like taking her into custody to figure out everything. But I don't know why in my mind it's stuck that she's like totally innocent, doesn't know anything about this, and does not deserve to be treated so poorly.
Yeah.
That was rough.
Tommy Lee Jones ever felt bad about shooting Copeland. I think he felt he was totally justified. But I think it was showing that when he thinks the person is guilty, he's justified. He's like, I'll take them out and find them no matter what. But either way, like it's not a good starting off point for Tommy Lee Jones. Like, why is he so ready to just shoot anybody? Like, who knows? Copeland could have been framed. He could have been an innocent dude. We don't know what his story is. And he's just like, bang, bang.
I was going to say, too, they treat Copeland much more like the actual criminal versus Dr. Kimball, who's like the innocent or whatever. But we don't know anything about Copeland or his life, so we're sort of supposed to just view him as disposable in this sense. Like, he organizes the escape and then kind of disappears and then gets found and murdered. But, like, we don't really know what his crime even was. Like, he could have been busted for, like, possession. You know what I mean? He could have been nothing.
And the thing is, too, on the bus, he's obviously part of the escape. I don't know if he, like, planned it. Obviously, we don't know. But he also does help Richard Kimball out of the ditch. So, and, like, helps him get his chains off. So, like, that's showing that he's not, like, a complete cold-blooded psycho. Like, he's got some kind of human compassion going on. So, like, why didn't we give him a chance? Like, he's probably more innocent than Richard. Who knows?
We just didn't need that scene at all.
Yeah. We just didn't.
Yeah. I think it was also to kind of just wrap up the Copeland, like, loose end of what happened to him after they escaped. But they could have just, like, had someone mention it in passing, being like, oh, he was found and brought into custody.
Yeah, or got shot. Fine. If someone had to shoot him, like, fine. That didn't have to be on screen. You could have been like, oh, yeah, they found him and he fought with the police and now he's dead.
Agree. Yeah. One thing that did make me laugh, though, after that scene, when he's talking to, who's the police officer that he was holding hostage, or the U.S. Marshal that he was holding hostage?
Oh, what's his name? It's like Nelson or something.
Whatever it was. When Tommy Lee Jones was talking to him afterwards, and he was like pissed off that Tommy Lee Jones had shot. And then he was like, I can't hear anything. Like, I'm gonna have permanent hearing loss. And then Tommy Lee Jones was like, can you hear me? And he like whispers into his whatever ear that I forget what ear it would have been, whatever. And that made me laugh because. I know it's different with gunshots and like how damaging that is, but so I'm deaf in one ear, and the number of times I've had people be like, oh my god, you're deaf, and then whisper into my deaf ear saying like, can you hear me? And I'm like, yes, because sound travels and like I can still hear you. So I related.
His name is Newman, just for the record.
Newman,
not Nelson. So
I hope he doesn't have permanent hearing loss.
He probably does.
It just made me laugh.
Yeah.
That is funny though. You're right. Like, yeah, he's whispering in this ear, but this one was still functional. So
that the number of times I've had people do that to me.
That's so funny.
But since we're talking about Copeland a little, we'll go back to the escape scene.
Sure.
Yeah.
Which is like my favorite part of this movie. It is so tense and terrific and fantastic. So he's been convicted in a court of law. Real quick side note, playing the 911 call in court for the accused to hear is real harsh. Like, you're really presuming he's guilty then, and it's like, now you have to listen to your victim. But like, if he is an innocent man and he's listening to his wife die on a 911 call, like, that is a horrible thing to put someone through.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into this, but the whole police and law system does not come out too well in this film.
No, we can just go into it if we want, but you're right.
No, but you're right. I want to get to the escape, though. That was the fun, action-packed part.
Put a little bookmark there.
Yeah, we'll come back to the rest later.
Okay, good. Yeah, let's go to the good stuff, because the escape is so good. So basically, he's on a bus with, I believe, 3 other inmates and 2 guards and a bus driver. And the other 3 inmates, like, exchange a look. So they've obviously planned this distraction to attempt to escape. One of them, like, obviously chews an Alka-Seltzer or whatever, the classic action movie prison escape trope where you chew an Alka-Seltzer and start foaming at the mouth.
Oh, I missed that. I couldn't figure out what he used. That makes sense.
He just, like, goes down and comes back up with something in his mouth. Yeah. So it's unclear what, but it's a ruse. And then the less experienced guard, always, he opens the door to, like, see what's going on, and then they attack him. There's a big fight scene. The other guard has a shotgun. The bus driver gets shot, so the bus is careening out of control. One of the inmates is shot and the other one's knocked unconscious. And so the guard with the shotgun wants Richard Kimball to help the guard who's been stabbed because Richard Kimball is a doctor. So at this point, they've careened down a hill. The bus is upside down. Everyone's been tossed around and yet no one has a broken bone. Okay.
Yeah, we'll...
Yeah. And then all of a sudden they realize they're on train tracks and there's a train coming.
Because why wouldn't they have fallen onto train tracks? Of course they would have.
They would, because it's like my Christmas present. I love it so much. That moment when you see the train light and you hear the horn, you're just like, okay, now it's serious. There's a ticking clock. You got to get off the bus. Unfortunately, the guard who's not stabbed is like a complete dick. He's the worst character in this whole movie because Richard Kimball's like, help me save this guy. And the guy goes like, the hell with you. And he jumps out the window and runs away and leaves his friend to get train smashed.
Yeah.
And Copeland abandons him too. But Richard Kimball saves the guard, pushes him out of the bus. Now, I want to know specifically, Austin, did you enjoy this action sequence?
Let me refer to my notes here. Let's see if I got an in the moment. Yeah, okay, I didn't write anything, so I guess it was okay. No, I was really tired when I started watching this movie. So the first like 45 minutes, like it took me a long time to get into it. Not really any fault of the movie. I was just really tired when I was watching it, but it was good. I mean, I didn't consider there to be any stakes because it's the first like 5 minutes of the movie.
I was wondering because it's not like shooting. This movie isn't really a shooting action movie.
That's something I do want to talk about, is that this movie has less action in it, therefore the tension is higher and I am more invested in what is happening because I can actually keep track of what's happening. And I mean, there were a lot of men in this movie and I got them mixed up and it was annoying, but like other than that, I enjoyed that there were fewer action scenes and that the ones that were there were mostly foot chases or, you know, there was some shooting, but nothing too bad. I think this is later when he's like hiding in the St. Patrick's Day parade, which we'll talk about, but I wrote, this foot chase is so much more tense than any car/helicopter/motorcycle T2 I'm looking at you. It's so much more exciting than any of those chase scenes.
Well, it's funny because I wonder that because there is a lot of chase in a lot of different modes of transportation. Helicopters, ambulances, subways, cars. I was just like, I wonder if Austin likes or hates this. Because they're chasing, but they're not shooting while they chase.
Yes, no, I preferred it.
Right? Like I had a whole mind conversation in my own head. I'm like, is this what Austin likes? Like, she doesn't hate the fact that there are cars involved. She's happy that there's no guns involved.
No guns, and it's just like, I mean, the ambulance chase was probably a little more on it was like verging into I'm getting bored territory, but other than that, like it wasn't too bad. I was more invested because I felt like there were actually stakes and there was actually tension because it wasn't just people shooting at each other constantly.
I mean, to me, being shot is stakes, but I get it. I know what you're saying. But I like this whole scene again. When we've done this podcast and I've been watching movies, I just become more aware of my posture while I'm watching a movie. And like the whole bus train, I was like out of my seat. Like my posture was ramrod straight. I was just so on the edge of my seat, even though I know what's going to happen. Because even though I know it's going to happen, I'm so into it. And the train is coming and he's like trying to get out of this bus. And there's the classic scene where he jumps sideways as the bus gets hit by a train.
Yeah.
And like, that's a real thing a human being had to do. So like, that's an incredibly crazy shot to get.
It was two shots. It was cool. Superimposed.
Okay, fine. Ruin it for me, why don't you? But I still love it. But that's one of my favorite parts of the movie. Well, and you're right, it's really early on, so it sets like a tone.
Yeah. You can go visit that accident site, Jackie. It is now a tourist attraction in North Carolina. The bus and train, I think, are still there.
That is amazing. Can we all three of us go and I'll recreate The Fugitive and you guys can film me. Oh, it is my dream. I've never wanted to go to North Carolina before, but now I'm going. But I guess, yeah. So moving on from this scene, so he escapes.
No, what were we going to go back to? We were going to go back to something. Let's return to that bookmark.
Oh, yeah. Like police, law enforcement.
This kind of seems like an action movie trope to me too, in that there's like a almost, I can't call the Chicago police like a small town police, but there's a small town kind of bumbling cop feel to the most of the cops in action movies, except for the one star cop who's smarter than everyone or more dedicated or something, right?
Funny because I didn't actually get that impression with this movie.
Oh yeah?
So I'm curious to hear what you guys, because I actually thought they were doing a pretty good job with investigating and like analyzing things. I actually enjoyed like the investigative elements of it.
Right, but the investigation wasn't coming from the police. There was Harrison Ford investigating, and then the marshals. But like the actual police department.
Sorry, yeah, I guess I'm talking about marshals.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think that's what I'm trying to say. The Chicago police, like they're all older white men with glasses who sound kind of stupid. They're all like, doi, he did it. Like they don't even try and investigate the one-armed man. And then at the end of the movie, after a transit police officer is killed, not by Richard Kimball, but they assume it's Richard, and then the stakes change because the marshals are telling everybody, like, the cops are after him, they're going to kill him, like he's not getting out of this hotel alive if the Chicago PD has anything to do with it. And that's even fair. At the end of it, they're like doing all these news conferences, they're standing by Richard Kimball's guilty still, right? So like there's always like one good cop, or in this case a group of good cops who are the marshals, and then everyone else is like either corrupt or incompetent or lazy, and that's the other group of police.
That's fair. I totally forgot about the Chicago PD.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just like, you're totally right, Jackie. They're almost like cartoonishly bad, because even like later on in the movie, once we have clear, like maybe not evidence, but you have reason to suspect that he's not actually guilty. They're like, well, why is he back in Chicago? Why is he reinvestigating his case? This doesn't make sense for a guilty man to do. They're still just like 100% no, he did it. There's no reason to question anything we looked at. He's just crazy, and let's just move on. Let's not even worry about it. And it's like, you should have some questions, like, you know? Because if he is guilty, what is his motive for what he's doing right now? There is none.
And they have this weird, like, circular logic where they're like, well, the court convicted him, so he's guilty. But it's like, but we gave the information to the court that wasn't complete, that caused his guilt. So it's like, no, the court convicted him, so he's guilty. And it's like, yeah, because you did a bad job proving that he did it. You know what I mean? Like, so they're like, they use that to reinforce their own belief, but it's flawed. It's completely flawed. And they're just propping themselves up and be like, yeah, we're right. I don't want to hear anything else. And it's terrifying, because I'm sure that happens every day in real life. Yeah.
One thing that bothered me too with their, shoddy police work was they kept saying that the motive was that he wanted the money from his wife's life insurance policy. And I'm like, okay, listen, if you wanted to string this guy up because you're too lazy to do your job, at least just say it was like a crime of passion, heat of the moment, killing his wife. Because if you're trying to convince people that like a brilliant surgeon was murdering his wife just for money, and then did such a poor job of it that all he could come up with was there was a one-armed man. Like, how is that flying? Like, I'm like, it just made no sense. Like, he basically has no motive at that point, because he wouldn't get away with it to get the money.
That also seems like a very easy case to solve. Like, I feel like one-armed man is a pretty, like, all right, let's start in his fancy doctor circle and work our way out. Oh, hey, there's a one-armed man. Like,
right?
You know what I mean?
They didn't, like, Richard Kimball in about 5 minutes narrows it down to 5 names.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so the police they didn't go to the prosthetics lab in his own hospital at all. Like, it's so clearly connected. And I mean, it has to be simple enough that he can resolve it himself without any resources. But again, it's just showing how terrible police are, that they don't even, like, they obviously don't even lift a finger. They're like, well, we're not going to consider anything else. We've decided that this man is guilty, and now our focus is on proving that, not actually finding the truth.
Yeah, like, I don't know if they actually said it one way or another, but I got the impression that they didn't believe there was a one-armed man, so they just didn't investigate. Like, they just kind of charged him that night, and were like, okay, Harrison Ford, you did it. And he's like, maybe do some police work? Have you guys heard of that? And they were like, no.
Well, they talk about that a lot in a lot of books and articles criticizing the police, where it's, once they get their mindset, everything has to funnel into that narrative, and that, like, all the other ideas of what could have happened are done. Like, they're just immediately done. And now it's pick and choose what supports what we want to be true.
To support your narrative.
It's terrifying. Yeah. This really scared me when I was a kid. because they do a good job in like the first 5 minutes, really 5-10 minutes of like showing how terrifying it would be if you knew you're innocent, but like everyone else is sure you're guilty, and you go to court and you think that due process will come out with the truth, and it doesn't. And it happens, I think, a lot, and that really freaks me out. It could happen to any one of us anytime. Like, it's such a terrifying idea when you know the absolute truth, but there's no way to convey it. I hate that thought. It makes me very scared.
Yeah. I do also, on that kind of same point of the ineptitude of the police, have to question how good his legal team was.
I was
like,
just
you're
gonna
a
say,
top surgeon, so you're connected.
Rich.
You're rich. You've hired a lawyer who can't find that one-armed man. Like, I think they say at one point, they're like, oh, even his own legal team didn't believe that guy existed. But again, Harrison Ford found him in like 2 days.
That's what, and he wasn't that far removed. It was like 3 degrees of separation. Like, I don't know.
It's really true. Like, I guess it's just that even if it was 3 degrees of separation, I think that the one-armed man being employed by Dr. Lentz, who was another doctor at the hospital, I think they kept that very separate. And the only thing that really proved it was photos of them together. Right. Like, I don't think he was on the payroll of his business. I think it was all very hush-hush, even though he's like, oh, I'm security for Devlin McGregor, but like, he wasn't officially.
Do you want to break down real quick what the actual crime was?
I would love to, because it's
I
so
would love
interesting.
if you did.
Okay. Shall we take notes?
We have 2 bad guys. Well, first, we have Dr. Lentz. He's the pathologist, and he's on the board of a pharmaceutical company called Devlin McGregor, and they have a new medication that's going to clear out clogged arteries. It's called Provasic. Now, what is happening is that Richard Kimball, as a vascular surgeon, is getting a lot of these patients, and he's realizing that the patients who are on this drug are getting liver failure, and it's causing really bad side effects and killing them. So he sends tissue samples to Dr. Lentz, and he's like, look, this is fucking these patients up and killing them. But then Dr. Lentz, behind the scenes, is switching those for healthy liver samples. So basically he's falsifying the information so this medication can be released and they make a ton of money. And so we find out that Dr. Kimball's friend, Dr. Nichols, is also in on it. And basically, Dr. Nichols is the mastermind. He gets Dr. Lentz killed because Dr. Lentz knows that the medication has side effects. And then he wants to get Richard out of the picture because Richard also knows that the medication has side effects. So to do that, he frames him for killing his wife. So it's all about this billion-dollar medication and getting rid of anyone who knows that it is dangerous.
See, I got the impression that he was the intended target, though. Don't they say that at one point, that he was the intended target and he just accidentally got his
Maybe.
wife?
I can't remember. Maybe they wanted to kill both of them and it was going to be like a robbery and it just turned out. But like, I think he was framing him because he borrowed his car so he could call the one-armed man and get him to attack his wife while he knew he was in surgery. So I think it was a straight-up frame job.
No, I thought this.
Yeah. I did wonder about that because I couldn't figure out if he was just trying to kill Harrison Ford to get him out of the way or if it was a frame job. Because if they was just trying to kill Harrison Ford, I don't know why the one-armed man, killed the wife. And then I also don't know why the one-armed man ran away without killing Harrison Ford. It probably would have been easier. Because I think they said, he would have been thrown down the stairs and then he runs. Mm-hmm. Probably would have been easier for him to, run back up and stab him or shoot him. I don't know if he had a gun with him or something like that. And then stage the robbery as opposed to just running. Yeah. I wasn't quite sure what the goal of that crime was. And then I also wasn't sure why Dr. Nichols acted the way he did once Kimball had escaped and kept coming to him for help. You know what I mean? If you really want that guy back in jail, why are you, giving him money?
I think it was a frame job, personally, because he got Richard's keys by borrowing his car and gave them to the one-armed man and, called him and told him when to come. And he would have known that he was in surgery, even though it was an emergency call. So I think it was a frame-up. I don't know why. That was just the impression I got. I can't really speak to why I think that so much, but I think it was a full frame. But it's also a really risky thing to do because she had to say Richard on the 911 call. That was what really clinched the court case. And there was no knowing she was going to do that, right? So
yeah. And I think they also said that she scratched Richard when he was trying to help her. So his skin was under her fingernails. Whereas the one-armed man, like, there was no DNA from him at the scene either. So, like, again, that's a real risk that you're hoping you can get through this without leaving any DNA behind.
Yeah. So maybe it was like a try and kill them, and then they had to be kind of improvised at the time because Kimball wasn't there, and then he caught him in the act. I don't really know. Obviously, Nichols is not the smartest dude. Like, don't just kill people. It's not a great problem-solving way to go.
Yeah, because
also,
one of the... Oh, sorry, Jen.
No, I was going to say, also, people are going to find out that drug causes liver failure eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe he's hoping it'll take a while and he'll be in the Caribbean at the time. He's like,
Yeah,
I'll get my golden parachute and get out. But you're right. He does give him money and he helps him. And I think that is really just, if he said, no, Richard, I'm trying to kill you, then, conflict, and he'd try and kill him. And he's like I think he's just playing a kind of smooth, hesitant game. Like, what is the best way to handle this? Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what's going to happen. I think he's sure that Richard's going to eventually end up back in jail. It's only a matter of time. So he's just like, I'll just kind of wait and keep my cards close to my chest.
Yeah, I did just think it was kind of weird once you get the reveal that he had been behind it all, that, like, he had given Richard money. He was like, I'll help you any way I can. He tells the marshals, like, I believe Richard's innocent and I'll never tell you where he is. I just feel like he could have played it more like the lawyer did, where he was like, listen, you're my friend and I love you, but you got to turn yourself in. Like, you're just making this worse for yourself. That's kind of how I would have played it if my friend who I had framed for murder was on the run,
Noted for future reference. But also it's purely, now that you mentioned, like, it's purely for the movie. Like, we're not supposed to know that he's involved for a while. So yeah. That's the end of the movie. Charlie's a bad guy. Surprise. His best friend did it. And you kind of know too. He's like a skeezy guy, right? Like, you're already from the beginning, you're kind of like, Mr. Nichols, you're kind of
Also, what
shitty.
is his accent, do we think?
Yeah, I like his accent. I don't know. And it's the actor, right? It's not the character.
I have no idea.
Let's look up the actor and see what it says. Dutch.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say Amsterdam for some reason.
You were dead on. I was going to say German, but it wasn't quite German, so I guess Dutch makes sense.
So we've gone from the beginning to the end, and we skipped the middle.
Well, it's okay. What else do we want to talk about?
Well, the middle is all about him running around in various locations.
You wanted to talk about the hospital stuff, right?
Ugh, I love the scene where he's in the hospital. So he makes a fake ID.
Which scene? He's in the hospital like 75 times.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. Let me rephrase. I love the scene where he's in the hospital. He's dressed as a janitor because he's investigating in the prosthetics department. And then he ends up in the ER and he's trying to leave, but there's some mass casualty that's happening and he can't get out. So he's just kind of standing there. And then we see our favorite doctor, Julianne Moore, in a little cameo.
Oh, baby.
I guess it's not a cameo, but yeah, you're right. She's so young.
Yeah.
She's 20. It's ridiculous. Beautiful. Badass ER doctor. I kind of love her. She has a smaller part than Sela Ward, and I'm still obsessed with her.
She was supposed to have a bigger part. It was all filmed and then all cut.
Oh, really? Weird.
Which is why she still has a credit in the opening. She's in the opening credits.
Do you have any idea what the bigger part was?
I think it was probably some sort of romantic interest kind of thing. I think I read that, which kind of sucks. So I'm glad that didn't happen. But I did want to see more of her.
She's 30 years younger.
Because this movie needs more women. So it would have been it would have been good. I think he was supposed to come to her for help or something, which that would have been cool. We don't need a romantic plot. Just get more people involved in the hijinks.
Yeah, but doesn't seem like she takes any shit, right? Right off the bat, she's like, so what happens is Harrison Ford is instructed to take this kid to observation, but he realizes that no one's really looked at this kid's x-ray properly, and he looks at the x-ray and he takes the kid to surgery and saves his life. But Julianne Moore sees him as a janitor looking at this x-ray, and then she finds out the kid is saved and she tracks him down and she's like, what the hell are you doing? You can't change orders and look at x-rays. Who the hell are you? She takes his badge, snaps it off his jacket, and she's like, you wait right there. She's such a hard ass, which I really appreciate. I'm like, good, you fucking tell him what to do. Of course he runs, so no consequences, but she, in her 30 seconds of screen time, is memorable. She's great.
Mm-hmm. I also love when the marshals are talking to her after the fact, and they're kind of giving her a hard time, and they're like, oh, what, you just let him get away. And she was like, I called security. What do you want me to do? Like
I'm
come
going
on.
home. Fuck you all.
Yeah. She's like,
Yeah.
my shift is over. Like, this is your problem, not mine. And I'm like, yeah, good call, Julianne Moore. Do not get shamed by these U.S. Marshals because you didn't, like, tackle a dude for no reason.
Right? And that's kind of Tommy Lee Jones' vibe. He's very, like, aggressive to everyone, not just, obviously, younger women doctors, but everyone. He's just like, why aren't you already reading my mind? Why aren't you already doing all these things I want done? And so she kind of takes, and she's like, fuck you, dude. Like, you have no authority here. You're not my boss. Like, go to hell. But she's great. I would have liked to see more of her. And Austin, you make a really good point. There's like 3 women in this movie, and they're all on screen for like 4 seconds.
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah. There's one Marshall who's a woman, but they make her basically sexless. Like she's one of the dudes.
One of the guys,
is,
yeah.
Like, all right, I'm sure that's how a lot of these law enforcement teams would work, but none of the associate marshals have a storyline, so I'm not surprised she doesn't have a storyline. But
the U.S. Marshal one definitely does have the biggest, the biggest role out of the 4 women in the movie.
Yeah, and all she is an information source. Like she never does anything.
Yeah, but I think again that's true of all of the other marshals. They're all kind of like interchangeable in that way. So it's more just like by coincidence that she happens to get the most to do as a woman in this movie because they just happened to let one of the marshals be a woman.
Yeah, it was a totally like a throwaway, like, we'll throw the ladies a bone. This Marshall's a woman. Now, aren't you happy? Stop complaining. But so, the other women are basically Julianne Moore and Jane Lynch.
I was very excited to see Jane Lynch.
I was very surprised. Like, she also looks very young.
Baby
but I
Jane
was like,
Lynch.
I did not know that she, like, had a past in, like, 90s drama action movies. Like, I don't associate this kind of thing with her at all. So it was very surprising.
I loved her, too. Like, she has a very, very small part, but she's, like, I love when anybody is, when the person is innocent. I like when their friends are straight up like, no, I'm going to help him if he comes to me.
Yeah,
and
I love
I'm not
that she was
going to
like,
tell you.
I think he's innocent, and I'm going to stand by him.
Yeah, and if he asked me for help, I would help him. Not you, Tommy Lee Jones. I don't need your aggression in my face. Yeah. And then they do. Like, it's nice. I don't know why. It makes me happy when people are like, nice. You guys, I like when people are nice. To nice people. It's just great. But yeah, she's also in the pathology department, I don't think, but
she's the one that helps him figure out that the samples were swapped.
Yeah, her presence is, again, like, she doesn't have a story. She's just a tool to help us understand that it's liver samples from the same healthy liver.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jane Lynch.
I do like that he goes to all the places that are, like, simultaneously the best and worst places for him to go to hide. Like, the hospital is great. Like, when he escapes the train crash or whatever, like, makes sense. Go to a hospital. You know how to stitch yourself up and how they work and, like, how to get in and out on not being suspicious. But, yeah, I don't know. And then, like, he goes to the courthouse later and to the jail and stuff.
Yeah, he does a lot of dumb things.
They show that, like, the U.S. Marshals had been circulating his picture to all these, like, specifically hospitals, specifically police and law enforcement, and then he keeps, like, showing up in those places, and no one kind of notices him. So it did make me kind of wonder, like, how much do people really look at those? Like, do you memorize the face of every, like, wanted person? Like, are the hospital staff just kind of glancing at it and being like, yeah, whatever, like, I've got other shit to deal with?
Yeah, I think so. And I think, at least for a little while, they didn't know he was in Chicago. Mm-hmm. But yeah, once they know he's in Chicago, you can see there's, like, an uptick in him being recognized. Like, he gets spotted in the courthouse, he gets spotted on the subway, in the hospital. So, like, I guess it's becoming more of a news story, specifically in Chicago, and the risk is going up of him being recognized. But you're right, even in the hospital in the beginning, the cop is like, has the picture in his face, and he's describing to Richard Kimball, like, we're looking for this guy who looks exactly like you.
With brown hair.
Yeah.
You also have brownish gray hair. And he makes a
dyes
comment,
his
too.
hair to look more like the description that they have for the Fugitive.
That is so... Well, I mean, technically he's supposed to have dyed it black, but yes, you're right. If he had gone blonde, I think it would have been more noticeable. Like, that guy looks really strange. Why does he look so strange? But, there's a lot of failures. People suck. I don't know how he gets away with most of the stuff he does, but it's because he's so good at being a fugitive, I guess.
Well, speaking of getting away with things that you shouldn't be able to get away with, would now be a good time to bring up the diving off the dam?
Ooh, yes.
Yes,
The classic,
absolutely.
classic. This is the biggest part of this movie that anyone remembers. It's amazing. It's incredible. It's beautiful and terrible. If anyone wants to know, he's basically being chased through sewer tunnels by the marshals, and he ends up at a dam exit of water where water flows over a, what would we say, 150-foot concrete
like a
dam.
Niagara Falls mini version.
Yeah.
Size.
Also, like, he got into the sewers from the tunnel.
The tiniest little manhole. Yeah, although the lid did lift up, so I suppose there's
he goes down the manhole, runs through the sewers, and then just is at the dam. Like, how close was that street to the dam?
I'm assuming the tunnel went over the dam.
Okay.
Like, I don't know why. Through it. I never considered logistics of dams and tunnels.
Because the dam seems, once they show it kind of later, it seems to be in a very, like, remote area. Like, he kind of washes up into the forest.
That's true.
Doesn't really seem like they're on the edge of the highway, but maybe they cover more sewer tunnels than I realized, maybe.
Yeah, I guess he has a pretty good head start, and they managed to catch him, so he could have been running for a little while.
See, I was like, okay, he's being held at gunpoint, he's, like, looking over the edge, and, like, his only option is to jump. But I'm like, okay, he must have spotted, like, a branch or something, or some sort of handle, and he's gonna jump, and he's gonna, like, hold on to something. Because that is stupid, but it's less stupid than him diving off of this fucking thing.
That's actually a good point, too, is that he doesn't just jump. He dives.
He, like,
first.
flips and, like, he should be dead.
And let's talk about a dam. It was like at a 45-degree angle. It's not even like a 90-degree drop.
Oh, God.
The cement is clearly on an angle. And I think it's been talked about a lot and proven conclusively, like, he could not have survived.
No way.
No.
It's just not
gave him the benefit of the doubt for surviving that train crash. I was not prepared to excuse this dam.
Yeah. And he's completely uninjured, too.
No broken bones. No, not even a cut.
He's just, like, a little sore and then sleeps it off.
Yeah, and he's like, I'm ready to run for another marathon 2 hours. I don't know. I cannot defend it. I can't. And it's so funny, too, because they so obviously throw a dummy. Like, the scene of him falling is so obviously a dummy, and it's just, like, contorty as it falls. And I'm like, all right, well, you're not even trying to make that look realistic. But, I mean, he's special, you guys. He's the fugitive. You cannot stop him. You cannot. Visits don't apply.
Could have been, like, anything else.
Yeah, they could have chosen a different dam.
It could have been lower.
Yeah, exactly. Could have been less of steep of a jump, even.
Right? There could have been, like, the tiniest little ledge that he could have, like, I don't know.
But then he would have just shot him.
Well, maybe
if he like crawled along the dam, he'd just be like, I'm Tommy Lee Jones. Boom. You're dead.
I don't know. Maybe he would have thought that he had jumped over. I don't know.
Yeah, something else could have been done, should have been done. I agree.
All right, so I do have a question for you guys. Because as I was watching, Dr. Richard Kimball and how he was sort of surviving on the run, he's very, like, I don't know, quick thinking. He really is able to get through a lot of situations. So how long do you think you would survive in this situation? You need clothes, money, food, shelter. You don't have any of those. You can't go to any of your friends or family for help. What are you doing?
Well, what season is it?
That's true. Is it winter?
What season? Let's go St. Patrick's Day, so it's March.
Okay.
That's when he was surviving.
Yeah, that's really questionable because he's out in the elements in Chicago area and he's in the water a lot. So that changes everything. If I had to be in the water, I'd probably die immediately. I'd be like, you know what? I'm really cold. I think I'm going to lay down in this pile of leaves and never wake up. Now, if it's the summer, I feel like, well, can I go to my work and get clothes there? No?
I mean, if you think you could break in and get away with it, yeah.
Okay, I can. I think I'd go to work. I can access the building after hours. There's no security, but it's like locked and I have a passcode and I have spare clothes there. So I could get that. Please don't rob me, but I have some cash in my house.
Ooh.
Uh-oh. And I don't know.
Wait, but you can't go back to your house.
Okay, so I'm starting from somewhere else.
Yeah, because, like, the police are going to be looking
Right.
for you. You're a fugitive.
Okay, so I've been like, say I was being transported to the jail and I escaped, and now I'm like starting from scratch.
Yes.
Should we
Okay.
like have some sort of like fugitive pact? Like we don't have to see each other, but should we just have like a clothing drop off with like
You know what? I'm
$100?
going to tell you both right now that I will give you one contact with me, regardless of whether you're guilty or innocent. I'll help you one time,
Okay.
and then if you come near me again, I'm calling the police. So let's just let that be said. I like you guys enough to give you one shot.
Here's one issue that I will have with this. Not like with you giving us a shot, but if this were ever to happen, it's not the 90s. No one has phone numbers memorized anymore. I won't know how to call anyone.
True.
That's true. And they would
Like,
trace it immediately.
How am I getting into contact with you guys? I'm going to the mall. I'm going to the Apple store. I'm signing into one of the Macs there and messaging you guys on Facebook.
Okay, how about this? We'll all get burner phones for when we are inevitably convicted of a crime we didn't commit.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. We got a plan.
But we still have
Okay.
to like memorize phone numbers.
We'll get tattoos of the phone numbers of the burner phones. And every time we get a new burner phone, we'll just cross out that tattoo and add another one and cross that one out.
It's called preparation.
I think I would get caught, like, the first thing Harrison Ford does when he's still in his prison uniform is that he, like, breaks into a guy's car to steal clothes or whatever. I would get caught doing that.
Yeah.
Like, I would be on my first step, and they would be like, hey, what are you doing in my car? And I'd be like, oh, shit.
He's also like not great at hiding in plain sight. Like he looks suspicious. And well, until later in the movie he gets like a suit and stuff, which is nice. A little tweed jacket. But when he's got like t-shirt and a hoodie and then like this big jacket, I don't know. It's just like I was actually really happy, and maybe this is a good segue into the St. Patrick's Day parade scene, because halfway through that I was yelling like, ditch the jacket, and then as it came out of my mouth, he ditched the jacket. It was like he heard me. We were on the same page, me and Harrison Ford.
You saved his life, Austin.
know, you're
Good
welcome.
job.
You're welcome.
But I actually thought something when I was watching this. So like Austin said, he is being chased by the police. It just...
Sorry, Jackie, is one of your dogs snoring?
It might be Larry. Are you snoring?
We could keep
Snore,
it in.
snore. He's pretty close to the microphone. Anyway, so the reason the St. Patrick's Day parade comes, there's actually a couple things I want to talk about, is because he goes to the county courthouse to visit an inmate who's on his list of one-armed men. And I'm like, hey, why don't you make that the last guy you check out? Because that's the riskiest dude. He's in police custody. So knock the other 4 off the list and then check Clive Driscoll. Like, I don't know why he goes there. It's so risky.
I think he assumed, like the marshals also assumed, that because that one-armed man was in jail, he was the most likely to also be a criminal capable of murder.
I think it was like an armed robbery. Or
Sir,
something.
it was definitely armed robbery. That's the
Yeah.
funniest joke of the whole movie. The one-armed man does an armed robbery. Like, bravo, scriptwriter. That is beautiful. But I guess you're right. Although, you have 5 people in Chicago. Like, why wouldn't you save him for last? And
Yeah,
also,
really.
armed robbery is so different than like a paid hit. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I would
And also,
I would not
like,
have done that.
Maybe this is just getting into what I love in movies, but when Harrison Ford realizes that one of them's in jail, I don't know why his first instinct is to, like, go to the courthouse to try to see him and not maybe, like, go to the local library, get out those newspapers on microfiche, and find pictures of the guy's mugshot to see if it's him. You know? That's a little less
Wow.
risky. That's my kind
a
of
lot less
investigative
risky.
movies I enjoy.
That's an excellent point. Like, there had to be a better way. But I think it's used, again, as a device to bring Tommy Lee Jones and Harrison Ford
Yeah, of
together.
course.
Yeah.
Big chase scene. Again, we see Tommy Lee Jones be very reckless with his weapon, where Harrison Ford, first of all, he's like, officers, there's a man in a blue coat, and he's waving a gun, and he gets the police to swarm Tommy Lee Jones. I love when that happens in an action movie.
Good move.
Always works, never fails. And then he is just outside this door, and Tommy Lee Jones shoots at him like 5 times, and it just happens to be bulletproof glass. And I'm like, Tommy Lee Jones, you're so harsh. Like, you're so ready to kill everybody. Like, you need to calm down. And in real life, I feel like there would have been like 20 investigations into how many times he discharges his firearm.
Oh yeah.
He wouldn't be allowed to carry a gun anymore. They'd be like, dude, you're too crazy. You're a
Apparently-
hothead, Tommy Lee Jones.
Apparently Tommy Lee Jones didn't like that scene or didn't like the fact that he was just like shooting the gun in the lobby, and he was like, this character wouldn't do that. I was like, I'm pretty sure this character would absolutely do that, but I understand that you, Tommy Lee Jones, think that that would be a stupid decision because there's a lot of innocent people potentially around. But
right, and people running everywhere.
Yeah.
But maybe that's why his character wouldn't do that. Like, he has no problem shooting bad guys, but maybe he wouldn't when he thinks there's a chance an innocent person could get hit. But yeah, I also think that's kind of a dumb scene. Also, the fact that it's bulletproof glass is because it's a courthouse, and courthouses usually have bulletproof glass. So wouldn't Tommy Lee Jones know that? Like, as a U.S. Marshal, that is, like, your job. Like, you protect judges, you transport criminals, you're in and out of courthouses all the time. Like, so what is that?
Was he just trying to get his foot, maybe? Because his foot was, like, caught in the door.
Well, he was shooting right at his head. I like to think that he was
maybe
just
he's
so
a bad
focused.
Well, he's not a bad shot. I don't know.
I think he was just, like, lasered on Harrison Ford. And he's, like,
Yeah.
not even aware of what's happening around him and the fact that the doors are closing. He's just like, me shoot bad guy. Unfortunately, or fortunately, he doesn't get him. But anyway, this is the point where he gets into the St. Patrick's Day parade to lose his pursuers. Now, do you think he planned his visit to the courthouse to be on St. Patrick's Day for that reason?
No.
No,
I think that was just
Okay.
a very lucky coincidence.
I also want to ask, so Austin mentioned he ditches his light colored coat and he has a dark colored hoodie underneath, and this is how he blends in. Do you think when he was buying his clothes, he got contrasting colors of
Ooh.
underclothes and overclothes, knowing that he would just ditch the overcoat and he's in a totally different vibe?
That's a smart idea.
I like to think it, because
Yeah,
he's
it
a
would
smart
make
dude.
sense. It makes sense. You kind of want to do the opposite. If you're spotted in something dark, you want to change into something light.
Yeah, see, I didn't think of it like that. I figured he just was picking, like, neutral colors that would blend in really easily, but I like thinking that he put that extra layer into it, that he was like, also, if I need to ditch the jacket, the sweater is a totally different color.
Because when I saw it this time and I was paying more attention to the kind of clothing, when he takes the jacket off, the next time they show him in the hoodie, it took me a minute to track him and figure out which one it was on screen. Because it was so different. And I was just like, oh, he's in the dark blue hoodie.
Who was the group he was walking with? Because
It was the Plumbers Union.
I was like, it looked like a Teamsters Union, and I couldn't figure it out. So it was the Plumbers?
It was the Plumbers Union. They got permission from the mayor of Chicago to film during the St. Patrick's Day parade. Like, it wasn't staged. Like, that was the parade.
That's cool,
and
really.
So they just kind of improvised it, and then was just using a handheld Steadicam to do it. And I think Harrison Ford got permission from the Plumbers Union to, like, just kind of hop on to their group for a bit. And he said that because he was being, like, low key, he said it took a while for anyone to recognize him, for anyone to catch on that something weird was going on.
That's so cool. I didn't know that it was the actual St. Patrick's Day parade. Yeah. And also, the whole scene is so well done and good. But it was funny that, because I never really thought about what group he was blending into, but I'm like, here's the group of middle-aged men who look sort of like Harrison Ford walking in the parade.
That's literally why I was like, is this like a Teamsters Union? That's all I could think of, was that it was some sort of, and it's perfect that it literally was like the Plumbers Union. Like, because yeah, it is just these kind of regular looking dudes. They're not in like matching uniforms. There's nothing kind of like that. It's something that you could blend into easily. So that was very well played on the filmmakers' parts.
I also love the idea that these plumbers had their 15 minutes of fame. And they're like, look, there's Joe walking down in the parade on the Fugitive. And he's famous for it now. He's probably like framed in his local pub in Chicago. Everyone's like, hey. It's delightful. The whole scene. You're right, Austin. Like, it's a good chase scene. And it's different than a lot. Like, there's always people running or being chased, but they're not usually so great at blending, right? But this is all about like blending into this giant crowd.
Yeah, well, and like you say, like, it took a second even for us as viewers to spot him.
Yeah. The other time, I just want to bring this up, is when he's on the subway. So this is when he has his confrontation with the one-armed man. I think the one-armed man, he's leaving the hospital or something, and the one-armed man follows him onto the train. Mm-hmm. And then some guy's reading the paper.
This made me laugh.
It made me laugh too, but I was also like, no one reads the paper and then looks at the front page to see the mugshot, right? Like he's like, oh, I'm reading the paper. I'm halfway through. I think I'll go back to the first page. I'm like, that's not how you read a paper.
And then also immediately looking up and making eye contact with the person across from you on the train. Never. I am reading that free newspaper. I am looking at it. I am not looking at anyone around me. And then even if I do look up and it kind of looks like the guy who's wanted, I don't know if my move is to stare at him and then very, like, obviously fold the paper, nervously shuffle over and find the nearest cop. Like, I would be keeping my mouth shut until the next stop and then getting off and telling someone if I really thought it was him.
That guy is not subtle.
Yeah.
But I also appreciate that because I think, like what you said is true. I think most of the time I would just be like, pretend nothing is happening, put your blinders on and leave. But like, it seems like a real reaction that a person would do.
Yeah.
They'd just be stupid and they'd be like, I am just getting up to walk away. Please don't look at me. Like, it seems stupid enough to be what a real person would do.
I think there's like two possible reactions to that. And like, those are the two.
Yeah.
But, we talked about this a little bit, but you guys recognize the transit cop, right?
I did not.
Yeah, we talked about this before we started recording.
He's the janitor from Scrubs, you guys. He's amazing. He's so, he's my favorite character on Scrubs. I remember it all the more because they make a joke of it on Scrubs where the janitor is actually the actor who played the transit guy. It's all very meta. I don't want to get into it, but it's hilarious. I love that guy and I love to see him, although he gets killed very quickly.
Very, very quickly. I was worried at first because I was like, there were witnesses on this subway. There are other subway passengers during this shootout. And then there's also, I'm assuming, CCTV somewhere that would be able to make it clear that it wasn't Kimball that shot the transit cop or whatever.
Yeah. I think they would, honestly, like if this movie had just progressed further than where it ends, if it had gone on, the police would have realized Kimball wasn't the one who did it.
Yeah. And
they wouldn't have messed with him. But at this point in the movie, they don't have that information. So they think that Kimball is the criminal and he's the one who killed the cops, the transit cops. So that's why the marshals are then really worried about the police bringing him into custody, because at this point, the marshals believe he's innocent. And they're like, if the cops get a hold of him, he's going to die. Like they're going to kill him for killing a cop. So that's when it switches from even chasing Richard, and now it's about helping him, or at least getting him out of the situation so that they can figure everything out.
Yeah.
But now there's like danger from all sides because the cops trigger happy. Nichols hits him with a chair. It's crazy. And then they have a big showdown in the laundry room, which is all right. I mean, it's nothing to write home about. It's the average dudes trading punches, punch, punch, punch. They run around the roof. They fall in some glass. They hit an elevator. That's a really weird thing to me, actually, is they both fall in this elevator.
He's fine with a dam, but falling 6 feet through a glass window knocks him out.
I mean,
I understand the days on his face, but still.
Like, it's been a few days this point. It's kind of like cumulative now, like all of his injuries from the escape starting to pile up. Maybe he's not eating well. There's not a lot of money for food.
Yeah, not sleeping great. Stressed.
He's having nightmares about his dead wife again.
Shitty. But I just don't understand. So they hit this elevator. They're both unconscious, and then it just starts moving.
Yes.
It's just like, as an elevator, I feel like there are people on me, so I'm going to go down. The elevator's like
below called the elevator.
But no one's there when they exit.
But the guy emergency stops it at the laundry thing.
I'm just trying to offer. Oh, okay.
That's fair. Yeah. But I mean, it was full of laundry. So it was like, it was going to the laundry floor anyway.
True. Maybe there's just someone at the basement being like, I called this elevator 10 times. Yeah, what's taking so long?
And he's like, forget it. I'll take the stairs.
Then he gets up the stairs and runs into like 10 U.S. Marshals and is like, what is going on at my job today?
I would like to watch a movie about that guy, just like always stumbling into these situations. Like, why is everyone freaking out?
Fantastic movie, just like the side or not even side characters, just the background characters of action movies. Like, I want to know the story of the people who were like in that hotel bar when Arnold Schwarzenegger came in on a horse chasing a motorcycle.
Yes.
Like, I want to know their stories.
I want to be one of those people. I want to be able to be like, you guys, guess what happened to me at the bar last night? A fucking horse. Boom.
I like to imagine there's like a couple there on a first date and it's kind of not going well, and then the horse fight comes in, and then they're like, no one else understands this. You're the only person. Like, you get me now.
Horse bike. Bringing people together. Anyway, all that happens is they fight. Although what?
One guy gets a cement beam to the face. Yeah, that was, or steel beam to the face.
Contraption where there's a steel beam on a string that will just go across the room to hit you in the face.
Yeah, what room are they in at this point? Like,
the
it's some
laundry
sort of just construction area.
Is that not
full
how you guys
steel
do
beams?
Yeah, it's in case you need to, like, if you're using the steel beam and your friend needs to use it, you need some kind of string to move the steel. I don't know.
It's where you hang the clothes to dry over the steel beam.
It's the most efficient way of drying clothes. Did you know? Steel beams. I don't know. I have nothing to justify that one. It's so weird. And even when I was a kid, I was like, what was that just hit him? Like, where did that come from? But I think we should just accept that. I mean, we've never worked in a hotel laundry as far as I know.
That's true.
So the mysteries of the hotel laundry are not for us to understand. And then Nichols is about to shoot Tommy Lee Jones. Harrison Ford beans him with a pole. And Tommy Lee Jones is like, I'm tired. Let's go home. And that's basically the end. Sassy Tommy Lee Jones makes some sass mark remarks. They drive away into the sunset.
Yeah,
end of
roll
movie.
Credits. So
satisfying. But I knew this would be maybe a struggle for you guys when I rented it and I saw that it was over 2 hours long.
Well,
yeah.
It was okay because I paused it because I had to go pick Blake up from work, and I paused it by some fluke right in the middle, right at the halfway mark. It's 2 hours and 10 minutes. I paused it at 1 hour and 5 minutes. So I was like, okay, perfect. I got like an hour intermission, and I'm like, and also because it took me a long time to like physically wake up to watch this movie. By the time I got to the second half, I was much more invested.
Yeah, I think like in terms of feeling long, it didn't feel as long as some of the other movies we have covered.
Yeah.
But I do think by the time it gets to that real like end set piece, like that felt like, okay, we can wrap this up. Like he's in the ballroom or whatever yelling at the guy, and then they go fight, and then they fight on the roof, and then they fight in the laundry room, and then they fight in the other room, and like that felt kind of like it was dragging a bit, and they could have just made it a little snappier, but overall this didn't feel as long as say Rent did.
Or like Terminator 2.
Disagree. But you're right. It's almost like there's too many potential endings. Like when he figures it out, that could be an ending. When he fights someone or a man, that could be an ending. When Nichols fights him, that could be an ending. Like there's a lot of stuff. But I do like that they kind of get the one-armed man out of it pretty easily. Like they fight and he locks him to the train and he's like, okay, you're out of the picture. But it also makes it longer. And you're like, oh, I thought it was over. Oh, I thought that was the ending. And there's a whole other ending that has to happen.
I would have cut the roof stuff. Like, I mean, I guess it's more exciting to have a helicopter that low to the ground and like,
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's more visually exciting, but like I would have been fine with just the
one or the other, right? Like make it end on the roof or don't include it at all. Yeah. You're right. It's like, why did they bother going up there?
Yeah.
Yeah, fair. That's a good point. But yeah, basically that's it, man. That's The Fugitive. He didn't do it, and he solved his own problem, which I really respect.
I thought there maybe would be a little more mystery to it, but it was like revealed in the first like 10 minutes. We saw the actual killer's face. So
I feel like you're right. They could have had more mystery because I think they made the mystery be the drug and the liver stuff, and that's not as accessible as a straight up like whodunit. Like even you guys said you weren't even sure you understood the big
it was a little convoluted
conspiracy. Yeah. So they could have made it more about who did it and the why, obviously, aspect, but less about the science about the why. You know? Could have been like something way simpler, but also you don't have such a big clue like the one-armed guy. I don't know. You're right. It could have been handled a little differently. I like the way they did it. And I don't know, was it a TV show before it was a movie?
Yeah.
And that's what so they had to base it basically off what they made. And in a TV show, it's more opportunity to make it serialized over a long amount of time. So it's hard to condense that into 2 hours. But...
Yeah. No, I feel like it made sense. I just, I wasn't crazy about all the flashbacks. Like all his like nightmares and stuff. And then his, just like all the black and white flashing stuff. I wasn't crazy about that.
So do you think we're ready for high points and low points?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm trying to think of a high point. It's and not because I didn't like the movie at all. I kind of liked when they were dissecting the phone call and they were like trying to locate it, and they were like, "Oh, it sounds like the L train." And so they were like listing cities that had elevated subways and like trying to geolocate it that way, and they were like, "Oh, the bell. You can hear the bell tolling." And there's like a PA announcement going on in the background. I thought that was cool. And that's like we don't always see that in like this kind of movie, so that was cool. I like that.
I definitely agree with you.
Yeah.
I like the lesser explored aspects of how they can trace these people. Like they're
Right.
so aware of everything that's going on in a way that, we just aren't. It's cool.
Yeah, I thought, and that's why I was like, oh, I actually thought the U.S. Marshal stuff was quite good. But then that's because I forgot that the Chicago PD existed in this movie. And then my low point, we already talked about it. I think it was the raid scene where he killed the other Copeland. Is that his name?
Yeah.
The other fugitive. Just didn't like it. Didn't need it. Overly violent and not great. Not a good look. Not really justifiable.
Yeah, I agree with you. Jen?
Oh, do you want me to go? All right, I will do. My high point is Tommy Lee Jones. I think he is great in this movie. I think it's weird because I know Austin has said before one of the things that she really likes about, like, I don't know, ballet dancers in movies or whatever is just seeing people like who are really competent at something.
Yes.
And that is what I liked about Tommy Lee Jones, even though he can be kind of a dick. Like, he is just competent. Like, he knows how to do his job. He knows what needs to get done. He's a step ahead of everyone else. And I enjoyed seeing that. And seeing him and the U.S. Marshals working together, minus the time he shot a guy in the face.
No, I agree.
And then my low point, I guess, it's sort of that with Copeland, but then also with, like, the prisoners and the prison bus at the beginning. I feel like this movie kind of, like, it's telling us a story of the one time when you're allowed to care about, like, a criminal, because he's actually super innocent and a really nice, good guy, whereas everyone else is kind of like, they're awful, they don't matter, we'll kill them, they're bad guys. And I'm like, I don't think that needed to be so black and white. Like, you could have had a little more nuance, like, because even, Harrison Ford could have befriended some of these guys in prison. He's not the only person who has been wrongfully accused. He's not the only person who maybe has, like, a sentence that is harsher than what they deserve. Like, we know there's issues with the judicial system. So, like, maybe they could have done a little more of that and not just been, like, one good guy exists, root for him.
That's fair. I will say that this is, as far as I understand it, he's going right from, like, court onto this bus to jail, so he wasn't in jail.
Right.
And also, these guys are orchestrating, like, an escape and potentially to murder all these guards. So, like, they're bad dudes. And that, like, I don't want to, could they have been, like, say they were all innocent, but they're still trying to escape. Like, they plan a murder escape. That, like, they're bad, right? Like,
but they're not necessarily going to murder.
I don't see how they could get out of the situation without murdering the guards.
I think they were going to murder the guards.
He had a shiv, and he
you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, all right. All right, don't put me on a prison bus with Jen. That's the lesson. So my high point is probably the scene where he saves the kid's life in the hospital. Very sweet and touching, and the little kid's cute. And I love the moment when he realizes he, like, saved the kid's life, and he, like, has a split second where he's like, this is my old life. This is what I'm trying to get back to. This is what I love. And it's just like a nice, he gets a reprieve for a second, and it's just nice. I like it. I love all of it. And I love every part where in the hospital, because I love hospitals and I feel very at home in hospitals. Every movie scene in a hospital, I'm into. I just, like, that's my jam. I love hospitals. So I love that. I love little Joel and his flail chest or whatever. And I love all of it. It's great. Also, we have Julianne Moore in there. She's fantastic. Ass kicker. So that's my high point. I love that whole scene. In terms of low point, I wrote the same thing as you guys. Shooting Copeland. I had problems with that, but I really do like the misdirect where you think, because right before they talk about it, Harrison Ford gets in a woman's car. And then they're like, we found him. He's shacked up with a woman. So you think they're talking about Harrison Ford. So you think he's about to get caught and it's getting real tense. And then you find out they're actually talking about Copeland. So I like the misdirect aspect of it, but the murder part of it, I definitely have a problem with. It's not good.
Quotes for us?
The classic quote from this movie is Tommy Lee Jones' little monologue about setting up a perimeter once he realizes that Richard Kimball has escaped. So he says, "Listen up, ladies and gentlemen. Our fugitive has been on the run for 90 minutes. Average foot speed over uneven ground, barring injuries, is 4 miles an hour. That gives us a radius of 6 miles. What I want out of each and every one of you is a hard target search of every gas station, residence, warehouse, farmhouse, hen house, outhouse, and doghouse in that area. Checkpoints go up at 15 miles. Your fugitive's name is Dr. Richard Kimball. Go get him." It's amazing. I love it. When he delivers it so perfectly, the cadence, the attitude. Friggin' love Tommy Lee Jones. He's great. And that's like the classic one. Again, that's the Brooklyn Nine-Nine that he says, Austin. You'll see it at some point.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds vaguely familiar.
Other quotes is the whole classic, "I didn't kill my wife, I don't care" exchange. And also this one I wrote down specifically for Austin, which is so funny because I knew she was freaking out about the dam. So after he jumps off the dam, someone's like, "He's dead." And Tommy Lee Jones goes, "Well, that ought to make him easy to catch."
Yes, I did like that.
I like when they find his hidey hole in the Polish woman's basement and they're going through everything and they empty his garbage and he's like, "Well, we're eating oranges and we're making IDs." I don't know why that makes me laugh. I'm like, yeah, great. Totally like Marshalls, man. You can't get anything past them. Orange peels. I love that the one-armed man, Clive Driscoll, is in for armed robbery. I wrote that down like 4 times. I thought it was so funny. I'm like, you guys.
Catch that till.
Could have been Grand Theft Auto, but no, they made it armed robbery. I also like when he finally goes to meet the guy in jail and he realizes it's not the right guy. And he's like, "Oh, sorry, I made a mistake." And the guy's like, "Hey, man, let's have a conversation. I don't got no entertainment in here. I ain't got no cable." I was like, "Oh, Clive Driscoll, you're so silly."
I did feel bad for Clive in that moment because he got called out for his phone call. He's like, "Who are you?" And then Harrison Ford just leaves. And he's like,
Yeah, I know.
What? Like, you just messed up my whole day."
Right? He's like, "I'm bored." I also like, at one point, I don't even know what's happening in this scene. I just wrote down this quote. But someone's like, "What is this, a trench coat convention?"
Oh,
every marshal and every cop is wearing a trench coat.
I think that's when the one-armed man comes home and they're all, like, at his house.
Oh, yeah,
like,
totally.
What are you all doing here?
Totally. And then the last quote I have is just that Bones guy who's like the old man who runs the records at the hospital. He's like, "Hey, whatever happened to that thing with your wife?" And he's like, "It isn't over yet." Boom.
Bum, bum.
Boom. That's it. That's quotes.
Excellent. So the box office information here. The budget was $44 million, and the worldwide gross was $368 million. For trivia, this was the first American movie showed in Chinese cinemas in over 40 years, so it became a huge hit over there.
Wow.
Yeah. So Richard Kimball was played by David Jansen in the original television series The Fugitive, which was from the 60s, Jackie. And then his mother, Bernice Jansen, is an extra in the courtroom scene. You can spot her behind Harrison Ford's head while they play the 911 call.
Cool.
Yeah. Little cameos.
That's nice.
According to Harrison Ford, the studio didn't want him to have the beard. He said they figured they pay for the face they wanted to see, so they were concerned about that. So they didn't want him to have facial hair because that's not the Harrison Ford we know and love.
But it makes so much sense because he has to shave his beard.
Yeah. I don't have much. I said most of it, actually. Very, slipped it in. I'm getting good at this.
Nice. Organically.
Yeah.
So, the year is 1993. Obviously, the number one movie of the year is also the greatest movie of all time, released in 1993. Do you guys know what it is?
The Fugitive.
Incorrect?
Jurassic
Austin?
Park?
Yes!
Yes!
Hey, I win!
Nice.
The Fugitive was actually number 3, so it did do very well at the box office. Also, looking at the top 10 of 93 really solidified how different the film landscape is now, because it's, Jurassic Park, which is, action blockbuster, typical number 1. Number 2 is Mrs. Doubtfire. Okay, family comedy, I get it. Then The Fugitive. Then Schindler's List, The Firm, Indecent Proposal, Cliffhanger, Sleepless in Seattle, Philadelphia, and The Pelican Brief.
Oh, wow.
Oh my
So we're
God.
into, thrillers, dramas, World War II, biopics. It's very, very different than now where it would be 7 Avengers movies and 2 Star Wars.
93 is like my jam. I think I love every single one of those movies.
That's a good year.
By the way, we're doing Cliffhanger sometime.
And then, Schindler's List was obviously the big Oscar movie that year, Philadelphia. And also Tommy Lee Jones won Best Supporting Actor for The Fugitive.
I saw that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah, he deserves it. He worked hard.
The Fugitive was also nominated for Best Picture. I should have said that. But it wasn't nominated for, like, I think it was nominated for a couple of other things. Obviously, Tommy Lee Jones, and I think some editing, and probably some of the technical awards. I forgot to look it up exactly. But it wasn't nominated for, like, any actor awards or director or anything, which is unusual for a Best Picture nominee.
Nice. I would say, like, I was going to say no Best Supporting Actress, and then I was like, haha, just kidding. There's no actresses at all.
Yeah, Sela Ward, Best Actress. One scene. So now we do our scores?
Yes. I want to go last. I want to get you guys to tell me your unbiased opinion.
Austin, you up first?
Sure. There were parts of this movie that I really liked. I definitely liked that. See, I didn't consider this as much of an action movie as I guess I was maybe expecting to. So I liked those elements a lot more than in some other past movies you forced upon me. So I think I'm gonna go kind of like middle of the road-ish. There was a little more mystery, a little more intrigue. I'm gonna go like I'll go like a 6. Like it was good. Once I was awake enough to like concentrate, it was like a 6. And then for quality, yeah, like an 8. It's a good movie. Good music, good score. I didn't mention it. Can't go an episode without mentioning the score. I don't know what was going on with movie scores in the 90s, but I'm on board.
Right? Really builds attention.
Yeah.
Okay. And Jen?
I'd say my enjoyment, it's probably like 7 or 8, maybe 7.5. Like, it's a good movie. I enjoyed it. Like I said, there was a couple times where it started to drag a little. It could have maybe been a little shorter. But I still was really into it. It was enjoyable. No real big complaints. And then quality, yeah, I'd say it's an 8. It's well acted. It's well shot. You know, some of the effects, there's not too many. It's mostly just a few of the action things, and that all looks pretty decent. Yeah, overall, like, no real complaints on this one. There's nothing to really pick at. It's just a solid movie.
Nice. Makes me very happy. I never know how you guys are going to react. It's like Russian roulette, but this is a good one.
I figure that, like, Jen has sort of figured out my horror tastes. I feel like you're starting to understand my action tastes. Like,
and then neither of us have figured out what Jackie likes at all.
It's true. It's a crapshoot with her.
Yeah.
I like that. It's true. I want things you'll enjoy, but I'm also like, but I really like this, so I'm going to make you watch it. Like, I'm both minds. I want you to like it, but I also don't want you to like it because I love it so much. And I'm like, Austin's going to hate this. And that has its own kind of enjoyment to it. Anyway, this movie gets 9s for me across the board, enjoyment and quality, because like you said, there's moments where it could have been picked up. There's stuff I think could have been cut. It's not a perfect movie. Mm-hmm. And as opposed to Austin, I think it could have used more action. Personally, I would love to see a little bit more firefights, jumping off buildings, explosions. Pick one of those. Give me just a tad more energy. And quality, I think they did a great job with everything. The bus train thing looks fantastic. The only reason I didn't give it 10 out of 10 is because the dummy going off the dam is so stupid.
Oh, I hate that.
It's like a stick figure rolling down a dam. So yeah, I didn't give it a perfect score for that, but I gave it 9s. I liked it. I love this movie. And I want to say again, thanks Jen and Allie for suggesting this, because I forgot this movie existed for a moment and they reminded me, and that is happy.
Do we need to check in on the friendometer?
Super green.
Yeah, I feel like we all pretty much liked this one. This very rarely happens.
Feels
especially
good,
with
guys.
Jackie's movies.
Yeah.
I brought us together in the Christmas spirit.
Oh, this is our first episode of 2021. Happy New Year, everybody.
Oh God, did we make it?
I hope so.
Are we in 2021?
If you're hearing this, congratulations.
Woo! God knows what's going on in the world, but
yeah,
hopefully it's good things. Knock on wood.
What's our movie next week, Austin? Please be a good one, dear God.
Okay, I think we're gonna watch Hedwig and the Angry Inch for next week. It's great music. Think you guys will like it. Hope so. I don't know if you know anything about it, but it's gonna be a good time. And thanks for listening. That wraps us up for The Fugitive. And you can follow us on Twitter at I Hate Your Taste or on Instagram at Hate Your Taste Pod. We also have a website. It's I Hate Your Taste in Movies.wordpress.com, and there's links there to our merch. If you like what we're doing, please leave us a review on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. It really helps, and we'd love to hear from you. So thanks for listening. Bye.